Awesome. I see a handful more people just joined in. I'm so glad that you're all joining us. If you missed it, we're just throwing it in the chat. What organization you're with, where you're calling us from. Tell us what the weather's like where you are. That's the fun part about these webinars, is that we can all be on different sides of this continent and all have a conversation, which is fun. And with that, I think we're also pouring all day. Man, what is with Ontario and your weather today? Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're ready to jump in and get started here. Like I said, if you have any, if you want to throw in the chat where you're calling us in from, we would still love if you could do that. But I am so excited because we have Victoria joining us today. And we're going to be chatting about the secrets to finding long-term donors hidden in your fundraising events. And recently, Victoria ran a really fun fundraiser, which they called Power of Giving Gala. And I'm really excited for you to hear a little bit more about what Victoria and her team did leading up to the event, during the event, and afterwards, how they were able to identify some new donors. And what our goal today is that you walk away with hopefully some ideas and some thoughts around what can you be doing for your organization to make sure you're maximizing the fundraising efforts that you're putting in. And then also, how can you help and start to identify some of those hidden long-term donors that you currently already have, and maybe what does that look like for you to engage with them and start to nurture some of those relationships to see what they can become. So with that, before we get too far, I would love to know, maybe you can also throw this in the chat right now. Have you ever wanted to find more long-term donors, but you just didn't know how? Maybe that's something that's been a big conversation at your organization, as we've just come out of a pandemic and then we went straight into a recession, and we're all just trying to figure out, how do I find some more donors, because running events is getting more expensive. I don't have the resources or the team size maybe anymore to do that. So if that resonates, throw it in the chat. If it doesn't, also throw that in the chat. We would love to know. I'm seeing some yeses come in, some always, yes, yes, awesome. Okay, that's kind of what I figured you were gonna say. And so with that, yeah, really excited to jump into this. If we haven't met before, I'm Rebecca. I'm from the team here at Trellis. I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of organizations and helping them navigate thousands of different fundraisers through all sorts of different means, if that's ticketing, auctions, raffles, live auctions, funded needs, kind of all the whole mix. And so really excited to share not only what Victoria has done, but also what I've seen other organizations do successfully. And we are joined today by Victoria Evans. She's with Georgian General Hospital Foundation. And so one of the events we're going to be talking about in particular is the Power of Giving Gala, which they recently held. So thanks so much for joining us, Victoria.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca, for having me. And thank you to everyone on the call for being here with us today. Really looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, why don't we jump in and get started? Actually, before we do that, one last thing I did want to share, and then we will actually jump into it. As we're talking, there is a resource that our team at Trellis has recently put out, which is called How to Turn Your Event Attendees into Long-Term Donors. Very fitting title. I'm going to ask Justin from the Trellis team to just throw it into the chat right now so you can all download a copy of it. It has a ton of resources, a ton of ideas and strategies that you can also implement into your organization. So if you're like, they're moving too quickly, or I need some more details on specific elements, download this guide. Trust me, there's lots of really good stuff in there that I think you can implement today. So yeah, Justin's going to throw a link into the chat. There is also a QR code on your screen too, which you can also scan if that's easier for you. Amazing. But with that, why don't we jump into it? So maybe to just kick us off, Victoria, do you mind just telling us where you work, what your role is, how long you've been in your job, what you love about your job, just so we all know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Rebecca, as you mentioned, I work for the Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation. We are located in Midland, Ontario, just north of Toronto, about an hour and a half. I joined the foundation in 2022 as the community giving officer, but have recently actually just moved into a major gifts role as the key relationships officer this week, actually, to be exact. I've been in fundraising for just 2 years. Prior to that, however, I did have volunteer experience in fundraising and organizing events, which is where I definitely uncovered my passion for this. First and foremost, I have an incredible team where I work with outstanding leadership, and they did not force me to say this. Going into work each day, knowing that the work we are doing, whether it's, big steps or small, is helping to ensure that our hospital teams are equipped with the best tools and technology is extremely fulfilling. Beyond that, I get to interact with so many different people in a day. And, knowing that those relationships are built on something as meaningful as supporting our hospital it's incredible. So love my job.
I love that. I have had the privilege with working with few of your team members, and I must attest they are all fantastic human beings, and it definitely makes such a big difference when you've got a great team supporting you as well. And I know it wasn't just you, but it was a massive team effort with the gala that you recently ran, Power of Giving Gala. So can you set the stage for us? What was that event? What did it look like? What was it like to plan? And then also from a guest perspective, what does the Power of Giving Gala look like to attend?
Yeah, so prior to 2020, which is also prior to my time with GBGH, our team held 2 annual signature events. And when the pandemic hit, they decided to join those 2 events together, creating one virtual event at the time, the Power of Giving Gala. So they had removed any sort of theme to the event with the intention to direct all focus to the attention attention to the power of giving and the real reason behind the event to support our local hospital. So for the last 2 years, since the pandemic, we have ran this event as a hybrid, offering both an in-person and virtual experience. Last year, we had about 300 in-person guests and 61 virtual guests, and we raised about $654,000. This was through sponsorship, ticket sales, donations, e-commerce sales, and auction revenue. So we were really, really thrilled at the success of the event. We really wanted this event to feel more laid back than your average formal gala. We wanted it to feel very accessible to everyone in our community, younger and older generations, permanent and seasonal residents, and we wanted to engage with as much of the community as possible. So in terms of the atmosphere of the event and achieving that less formal energy, we removed the sit-down dinner component, instead offering food and drink stations, past appetizers. Last year, we were very fortunate the event took place at a beautiful waterfront property. So guests entered into the event along a beautiful dock, where they were checked in by our volunteers, handed a signature cocktail. They could enjoy music from a traveling violinist, throughout the crowd. They could take a photo in the photo booth or watch a live artist painting the beautiful view in front of them. So it was beautiful, a really, really nice vibe. So the food and drink mingling kind of lasted from about 5 p.m. to 7. And then at that point, we started our 1-hour live streamed show, which included a keynote from a guest speaker, a patient story, a live fund in need, and live auction hosted by the incredible Lane, the auctionista. And then we followed that up with some incredible live entertainment from the band Blue Soul. Would highly recommend them as well. And then, in order to engage as much of the community as possible beyond just attending the event, we offered multiple platforms for engagement on the webpage, the event webpage leading up to the gala. So 2 weeks before the event, we launched an online auction with approximately 100 items ranging wide in market value and different product categories in order to attract a wide audience. And then simultaneously to launching the auction, we also launched the sale of what we like to call our Georgian Bay bags. So our planning committee very intentionally curates 100 of these bags, each with a market value of about $400 to $500 and a retail cost to our donors of about $250. The items inside remain a mystery until they are picked up in person the week after the gala and opened by the donor. So creating these bags offers, a really great opportunity to involve and connect with our local business community and allow us to reach even more donors, regardless if they are attending the gala or not.
I love also the mystery element of the bag of like nobody knows what's inside except for your team. And it just kind of adds this element of excitement that people get to participate with. And I love that you've also chosen to make that more accessible, right? It maybe somebody can't attend the gala, maybe they're not in town, or maybe the ticket price is not in their price range. But the bag still gives them a touch point that they can have with you. Ah, I love that. Um, Amazing. Well, I know that GBGH has been running, like you said, you've been running your signature events for many years. And then you didn't make the switch to Trellis until after COVID. And I know that's also when you joined was post-COVID there as well. And so Trellis was already implemented, you already were using it, but compared to what you've used in the past or other softwares or technology you've used, what features do you find the most beneficial most beneficial is the word I'm trying to say, for you and your donors?
Yeah, so coming into my role here, I was brand new to fundraising. So Trellis is actually the first fundraising software that I had personally used. And from that standpoint, Rebecca, you and your team, made something that at first can feel very intimidating, feel extremely user-friendly and straightforward. And when our team can feel confident, we know that our donors can too. So one of the main features that was extremely beneficial for our team and our donors was the all-in-one event page. So, in our communications, particularly emails, social posts, and printed material, we can drive all focus and attention to that one URL, to that event webpage. And from there, donors are presented with a number of ways in which they can choose to engage. Whether that's purchasing a ticket to the event, making a donation to the event, bidding in the auction, or purchasing a GBay bag. The website gives them the full picture of what the event is about, what it's supporting, what our goal is, as well as our fundraising progress, with the thermometer.
Yeah.
So having this page was also really helpful kind of during our planning stages to help identify tasks needed and to help drive that work back schedule. For example, building the online auction on that page helped us identify the information and assets that we would need to collect prior to the auction going live. So, for example, making sure that each auction item, had a photo, a sponsor logo if it was donated by a business, description, market value, a starting bid, bid increments, pickup instructions for your donors, the start and end time of your auction. And depending on how large your auction is, if you're missing any of those details when it's time to launch your auction, it can be a lot of back and forth with many people, which can be quite stressful. So, overall, this event page not only helps streamline all of your engagement for your donors, but it also really helps to streamline your planning as well. The next feature, hybrid integration. This was, incredibly great for us wanting to operate a hybrid event. So, running our events as hybrid really allows us to reach a greater audience and remain accessible to those who could not attend in person, or maybe attending in-person events, isn't their thing. So as I mentioned earlier, during our live stream, we live stream a 1-hour show that includes the patient story, a message from our presenting sponsor, a keynote speaker, a fund a need, and last year, a small live auction. So for that 1 hour, we are engaging guests at home and guests in person at the event with the goal to make that experience, as integrated and seamless for both. So we had monitor screens set up at the event, displaying what was happening on stage. And that was what guests were seeing at home as well. So at the event, we directed all in-person donations to come through the event page by ensuring that each table had a QR code linked to the donation page and the auction page. Guests would use their own phone, scan the QR code, make their gift, and then it would be added to the thermometer on the event page in real time. And then, for guests who needed support or, didn't want to use their own phone, we had a donation table with volunteers ready to assist with an iPad. And then for those larger gifts that, we would see come in that night, we typically saw guests who didn't want to bid online at all, but rather they would inform one of our team members. And from there, we would enter this gift in manually through the back end of Trellis. Again, having it added to the thermometer for in-person and at-home guests to see. And also, this was really helpful for our auctionista to make sure that everything was coming through, for them to keep track of, and nothing was getting missed. And then the hybrid integration, also allowed us to perform a live auction at the event during that 1 hour live stream segment, again, so that guests at home and in person could have equal bidding opportunities. So we chose to have in-person guests bid through their phones once again at the event, rather than using paddles or hands, so that the bids they were making there and the bids that were coming in virtually, again, were both being displayed on that live stream in real time, and this way nothing was getting missed. So that was incredibly, really, really beneficial for us. And again, just allowed us to engage even more donors than those who were just at the event. And then 2 more. So the ticketing and checking process, these were 2 other great features. We only offered 1 ticket type and price, although you have the flexibility to create multiple through Trellis. We also offered promo codes for complimentary tickets. The ticketing allowed us to collect contact details from our donors and also ask them a custom question during the checkout process, which, you can use that in a number of ways that work best for your organization, depending on what information and data you would like to receive from them. And then welcoming guests to the in-person event, our volunteers were logged into our Trellis account on an iPad, and from there they could use the check-in feature, which listed all of the attendees who purchased tickets, and it allowed us to just mark them as checked in with the click of a button. So in order to ensure that check-in process was quick and simple, we needed to make sure that we collected as many of those guest contact details prior to the event. Having this information logged in their account meant that any bidding or donations they made through their phone at the event could be done instantaneously. On the check-in page, on our end, if any guests were missing any of that information, such as maybe a credit card number, it was very clear to us on that page what details we needed to collect from them upon arrival. So this check-in feature was also really great, as it allowed us to monitor how many guests had arrived and any who did not. Exactly. And then the e-commerce feature was something that's particularly useful for our team, as it allows us to sell our GBay bags directly through that event page. And again, just have that data collected with the rest of the event data. So yeah, really great features.
Awesome. Justin, thanks for putting in a link to Lane the Auctionista. We love Lane over at Trellis, and I know GBGH, their entire team loves Lane too. So yeah, they are awesome if you're looking for an auctionista. I love that. I feel like, you really took advantage of a lot of the different features we have, and also hybrid, which we're not seeing a lot of organizations, one, either know how to navigate the best way, or 2, they sometimes question, is going hybrid going to be beneficial for my organization, or is it going to be beneficial for my event? And so thanks for just sharing some really tangible ways that you're doing that, and also some of the impact. And, even knowing, you had 60 people attend, they had options to participate in a fund in need and a live auction, like those pieces are really beneficial. So thanks for sharing that. If there was anything that Victoria just mentioned that you do have any questions about, throw it in the chat. We will definitely get to it in the Q&A at the end, and Victoria will be answering some of those questions for us as well. But while you're typing in any questions you may have, maybe we can move to a bit more of a strategic lens. So can you tell us more about that pre-event preparation? So how do you ensure that you're going to have the right people in the room? And then how do you also ensure that you get some new potential long-term donors in the room too? Because you mentioned you had about 300-ish people at the event. It's not a massive number. It's not a small number, but you want to make sure you've got the right people there. So what does that look like, and how do you ensure that happens?
Yeah, so, with events like this, it's so crucial to have, both your current loyal donors and potential long-term donors in the room. So, and these are individuals who have shown interest in your organization. They are invested in your community in some capacity, or have been personally impacted by your organization, or could be impacted by your organization. So, right off the bat during our planning stages, we ensure that our team is extremely clear on our goal and mission for the event so that we can be clear in our communications to our donors. If your messaging is not in line with your mission, you may not be connecting with the right people. And, for an example, if you are promoting, a fun themed party with no mention of what your true goal or mission is, you may likely have attendees that simply want to come and attend a fun party rather than support your organization. So right off the bat, make sure you are very clear in your communications about what the goal is for the event. So in order to generate overall awareness for our event within the community, we typically start by putting out a save the date, email, and a social post to all of our donors about 5 to 6 months before the event. Our event this past year took place in September. So over the summer, we continue to share general emails and various printed materials, such as adding buck slips to some of our mailings to donors. We put out a media release. We promote on local online news platforms with digital ad takeovers. We promote on our local radio stations, as well as try to have a presence at various local community events. And then following the save the date, we then build a recipient mail list for a physical invitation to the event. So we include donors who have supported this event, either by making a donation to it, attending to it, purchasing in the auction or G-Buy bag over the last 5 years. So starting from here helps us identify donors who have shown an interest in the event and were inspired to give through it, and who are potentially already long-term donors. So from there, our team goes through the list to identify if there are donors that should be removed, maybe we know that they can't come, or if any are missing and should be added. And then what we like to do, we also assign our team members to donors in that list to personally handwrite a note that gets put in each invitation. It's just a nice little personal touch point. And as we are located in what we like to call cottage country, it's really important for us to not only connect with full-time residents, but with seasonal ones as well, to ensure that they attend our event. So, when they're here at their cottages, we are their local hospital, and it's very important that they know what services we can provide to them. So we share content, with various local cottage publications, and we look for ad opportunities such as promoting in their annual directories or newsletters throughout the year. Although they don't live here, there's a great likelihood that they have a love for our community. Their family may have been, cottaging here for generations, and they may see their family here for generations to come. And they may have had to use our hospital. So this is certainly an audience that could include some potential long-term donors. We also have a really incredible local business community, filled with leaders and change makers. So, whether they are sponsoring our event or donating an item to the auction, we do our best to ensure that they receive a personal invitation or outreach from our staff. And, if they are a proud sponsor, they will promote the event with their customers and help you spread the word. And then in a focused effort to get new attendees and prospective donors to the event, we really empower our ambassadors to connect with their friends and followings on our behalf. So this year, we encouraged our Gala planning committee to invite at least 2 new people to the event. And these are, net new donors to the organization. They have not supported, they have never attended the event. So our committee members are very involved and respected within our community. So having them advocate on our behalf and encourage attendance was extremely successful. And, through their investment in our mission, we can feel confident that they are approaching those, who are also in line with our mission as well.
Yeah.
Asking our board of directors, as well as some of our long-term donors as well, to invite their connections. So you might be able to think of a couple of your donors who you have a really great close relationship with, and who are really invested in your organization, to bring some of their friends that could potentially become donors. odds are they have a connection to your community and potentially your organization. So this year through our event, we saw 62 new donors through in-person ticket sales and 7 new donors through our virtual attendee registration. So that was some really great results. But then also, make sure that you have, or we make sure that we have, employees of our hospital, physicians, frontline workers, and attendants, as they have a direct connection to our mission. And then once you know that you have the right crowd at your event, make sure to be very intentional about how you are engaging them at the actual event. And this will help you potentially identify some prospective long-term donors. So for example, ask your ambassadors, and for us, this might be a board member, to connect with 2 specific guests that evening and learn about what inspired them to attend or what their connection is to the event. Did someone invite them there? Do they live in the community? What do they know about your organization? And from there, do they want to learn more? Would they like to come, to your organization for us, to the hospital for a tour? Engaging those ambassadors at the event is so important. If they believe in and support what you do, they will share that with others at your event and are likely to have some really great conversations with your donors. And then following the event, don't forget to keep track of what you learned from those conversations, because they can be very meaningful and help you understand your donors better.
I love that. I was just writing notes because I was like, there were so many good things you said, and I need to make sure we touch on all of them. 3 kind of takeaways that I took up from that I'm excited to see how other organizations can implement are: 1, keep track of the attendees that were keep track of attendees that have attended in the past or have attended other fundraisers. I love that you said that that's a really key group that you're working to engage with. Maybe they bought a bag last year and they didn't attend, or maybe they did attend, but they didn't make any donations, or maybe they did and they're an active donor in your, for your organization. Identifying who those individuals are and having those people as part of the list you're reaching out to is fantastic, especially because I love that you said that with this event and all of your fundraisers, you really have a key, you really put forward the mission of the fundraiser or the mission of the event at the forefront, so people know why they're coming. And so I love that you do that. And so, yeah, as you're listening to this, I would just say, keep track of who's attended events in the past. And maybe if you've got an event coming up that you're currently planning for and you've got in mind as you're thinking and listening to this right now, I would say take a look at who's attended in the past. How can you engage them? Second thing I love that you said was personal touches of like a personal handwritten note. That goes so far for people because it feels so personal. It doesn't feel like they are just one of many. I love that you divide and conquer on that. It's a great way to, it's such a perfect Friday afternoon task when
Yes.
everybody's a little mentally tapped,
Yeah.
but you still have to get some stuff done. So I love that you do that. And then super quick, because I want to make sure, I know you've got a lot of great things to share still, but the last thing that I love that you said that I'm excited to see other organizations implement too is you ask your ambassadors and your advocates to actually speak to individuals at the fundraisers, not just their friends that they came with or the people that they know, but they've got specific names of people they need to reach out to. And I love that you equip them with questions, because I think sometimes it can be a little bit daunting to go up and be like, I need to strike up a conversation with somebody and I don't know where to start. And so, as you're listening to this and as you're thinking about how you could maybe implement some of these things too, maybe you do have a list of 3 questions and 3 donors that, some advocates or some ambassadors for your organization should also be talking to. I think it kind of makes it a bit of a fun game for people to do as well. And I think that's a great way to get that information, because it can be a lot if it's only 1 or 2 people from your development team that are trying to manage all of it.
Yeah.
I love that you do that. That's awesome. And it sounded like the ambassadors would be a mix of staff members, board members, other key stakeholders, physicians from, in your case, physicians from the hospital. And so, yeah, maybe it's not just your development team. This is a joint effort, because fundraising matters for every single role, not just the individuals who have a fundraising title per se.
Yeah. Yeah, and you never know how someone is going to connect with someone organically, maybe they have the same interests, or so you never know how those conversations can spark up. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And then you kind of alluded to it at the very end there, but I'm hoping we can maybe dig in a little bit further. So, how do you use Trellis then to indicate who has the potential to become a long-term donor for you?
Yeah, so this is where the exporting feature really comes into play. So at any time, we can export a report that breaks down data generated through that all-in-one event page. So we can look at overall sales summary, ticket purchasers, donations made, auction bids, GBay bag purchases, anyone who used, those upsells if they made a donation while they were purchasing a ticket. And so because we've been using Trellis, for the last few years, we can compare these exports to previous year's data reports and to help us identify, behaviors and trends within our donors. So for example, we can look to see which donors are supporting the event year after year and how they're doing it. If they're making a gift, is the gift remaining, the same? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Are they choosing to engage in multiple ways? Like I said, are they bidding in the auction? Are they buying a bag? Are they coming to the event? And so, the more they continue to support, the more they give, and the more ways that they choose to engage. Those are certainly indicators, yeah, that they could become potential long-term donors.
Mhm. Totally. And I love that you're also looking at that year over year, right? And so, for your organization, you've had the advantage of running this particular fundraiser for the last few years. It gives you that comparison and you can see how you're growing and in what areas you're growing to, which is really important.
Yeah.
Again, if anybody does have any questions, please throw them in the chat. There is a Q&A option too, so if that's easier for you, do that instead. But yeah, I want to make sure that what both Victoria and I are sharing with you today is actually beneficial and going to be something that you can implement to your organization. So yeah, please keep throwing your questions in the chat. I've seen a couple of them roll in already. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited for the next story that you're going to share with us because I'll be honest, this was the conversation you and I had that actually sparked you coming on and sharing on this webinar. And so if you are checking emails at the same time as this, that's okay, but I would encourage you to stop for a sec and just listen in because Victoria and her team had a really cool experience in identifying some new long-term donors. And you mentioned that you probably wouldn't have noticed them before. So do you mind telling us what happened and how you identified them and what that now means for your organization as a whole?
Yeah, so this past year, Rebecca and Justin shared with us a completely new perspective on the data that we had access to through those export reports. This was unsuccessful bids in the auction. So we identified two potential long-term donors who had never attended our gala or supported our hospital in any capacity. They were invited by other seasonal residents and long-term donors of ours. So again, think back to empowering your ambassadors to invite others. And these individuals attended our event in person and were bidding between $5,000 to $10,000 in our auction. Neither of those bids were successful. So, at the end of the event, we are typically focused on who won the items or who made gifts that evening. So this really opened our eyes to the interest level and capacity of these donors who otherwise, without knowing about these bids, just simply attended the event and did not provide any other indicators of what their interest or capacity to give was. So, following the event, we made a personal call to them to thank them for attending. And as a new attendee asked what they thought of the event, why they chose to attend and support. And we learned that this donor had cottaged in our community for most of their life. They were extremely impressed by our team and the event and that they would love to continue supporting us. So this certainly provided some great indicators that we would have otherwise overlooked. So this is something moving forward, we will definitely be keeping an eye out for.
I love that. I see Colleen. It's nice to see you on here. I see that you just threw in the chat there too that you would have just never thought to look at that too. And it makes total sense, right? in the moment and you're so focused on the person that just gave a significant amount of money, which is, again, definitely something that we should be celebrating and we should be, so thankful for. But yeah, there may be another potential bidder that didn't win, that in your case, like you mentioned to Victoria, they didn't give in other ways, but they were ready to give in a pretty large manner. So I love that you were able to find those two individuals through that. I'm also really excited to loop back in a year or two with you and just to see, like, who are those individuals now, and what impact have they had on your organization? Because I have a feeling that at this point it's still a very much of a discovery phase, right? And you're still nurturing that relationship, and it takes so long. The impact they could have in a while here could be pretty significant, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Beyond that, so yeah, live auction bidders or the individuals who didn't win those items is a great new avenue that you're going to be focusing on. But you also use some other donation upsells. And so I'm hoping you could just share with us a little bit about what those were. And then also, if you could just walk us through how they influenced your follow-up strategy post fundraiser. So how did you make sure that you were engaging those individuals afterwards as well?
Yeah, so for the G-Bay bags, selling these really provides us with a great opportunity to engage face to face with our donors. So we set a range of pickup days following our event, usually the week after the gala, where donors can pick up their bags. And from here, our team is aware of who will be coming in, and we do our best to ensure that a member of our team is there to personally thank the donor, ask them, why they were inspired to purchase the bag. And we often hear, that the community loves the opportunity to support both their local hospital as well as the local business community, and that they make great gifts throughout the year, and they just continue to share the impact, and have such a meaningful role in helping those donors, support their local hospital. Donation upsells. So again, this provides us with just another opportunity to connect with our donors. So leading up to the event, any donors that made a donation on top of a ticket or bag sale would be followed up with a personal call or email from one of our team members. We were able to thank them for their support, ask what inspired their gift, ask if they plan to attend the event, and if so, would they like their gift announced at the gala? Any opportunity to have a conversation with your donors and learn about why they support is so important, and can really help guide your relationship moving forward. And then donating unsuccessful bids. So this was a new feature for us this year. So when bidding in the auction, donors had the option to donate any of their final bids that were unsuccessful. So we received a lot of positive feedback on this from donors, as it was, I think, new as well for them. Not many people had seen this before. So I think they really appreciated being given that opportunity to give back through the auction. And then, following the event, we would connect with those donors who chose the option to donate their bids, again, to thank them and learn a bit more about their giving.
I love that. And just to clarify the last piece that Victoria mentioned there about donating auction bids, that would be specific to the silent auction.
Yeah.
So when people are bidding in the silent auction, they get that ask. What I love about that is all of the different ways you just mentioned, it all comes back to establishing new ways to connect with people. Of, like, again, those personal touch points, having those conversations. If it's as simple as making sure that you're in the room when somebody comes to pick up their bag so you can have that conversation, or that personal call or email or thank you note, whatever that may look like for any donation upsells, any donated auction bids that you have. Again, just to call it out, I think you also, to an extent, have the luxury of having a larger team. Still not massive by any means, not to but if you're listening to this right now, and you've got a team of one, maybe you start with just one of these avenues. How can you start to just slowly start to implement some of these strategies so that you can also start to nurture those relationships? Because I know sometimes it feels a bit daunting hearing from other organizations and thinking they've got different resources than I do. trust me, from what I know of Victoria's team, and she can attest to it as well, it's not a massive team. But I know it is more people sometimes than just one or two. So, maybe is there other people on your team you can engage to help with this? Or how can you start in a small way, just to kind of get the wheels turning, see what sticks, and see how you can start to engage people a little bit further. Amazing. Well, we are going to ask you to come back up in just a few minutes here to do a Q&A. But before you go, is there anything else that you wanted to share, Victoria, in terms of anything we've talked about or we didn't talk about that you were hoping to add?
Yeah, I would just say events are often just the start of a relationship. So, although there's a big weight taken off of your shoulders when the event is over, really make sure that you have a stewardship plan in place following your events. Are guests receiving an email thanking them for attending? Is there a survey in there or an option to subscribe to your newsletter? Are they then receiving, your donor workflow emails welcoming them to the organization? What are your touch points with them throughout the year? So really make sure to take any opportunity you can to speak with them directly. Learn about why your organization is important to them or what inspired their giving. And really listen to them and let their inspiration be the foundation of your relationship together. So, that sets the path for an authentic relationship. And if you continue to engage them throughout the year and share and celebrate the impact of their support, it's very likely that they will continue to support your organization and become long-term donors.
Absolutely. That was the perfect segue. That was not at all planned. And so I love that. Thanks for adding that because yeah, I think it is. It's all about that stewardship. It's all about building those relationships and starting there. Okay, well, what I would love to do is I would love to just spend the next 5 minutes or so here just talking through some of the key pieces that I know Victoria shared, but also really identifying, what are some of the key elements that you can again go and implement into your organization right now too. Again, if you haven't yet, I would highly, highly, highly recommend just downloading our resource guide here. You can grab it off the screen if you scan that QR code, or Justin, if you wouldn't mind just throwing the link in the chat again, so you can grab that. A lot of the pieces that Victoria mentioned are actually highlighted in the guide, as well as some more tangible steps. So you can think about how you can actually implement them into your organization too. And you'll actually notice as you download that guide and as you look through it that it's actually not just Victoria that has seen such incredible success with her fundraiser. In my last 4 years at Trellis, supporting thousands of organizations or hundreds of organizations and thousands of events, we've helped charities raise over $30 million. And of all of that, what I've learned is it really all comes down to donor relationships. Now, like Victoria just said, don't get me wrong, these events and these fundraisers that you're hosting, they need to happen. But as Victoria also just ended with right there, what happens next, that post-event follow-up, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road and where you can start to engage your donors in different ways that are going to allow them to become long-term supporters of your organization. And so it's all about learning and knowing your donors and making sure you're engaging with the right ones and building the right relationships so that you can continue to grow your organization and grow your donor base around that. And so that is what I would love to kind of quickly walk you through so you can identify how you can do the same thing. So like with Victoria's event, the Power of Giving Gala, she identified and focused on the donors who used upsells. And so for their organization, that was the perfect way to identify donors who had the potential to become larger contributors for your cause, and the ones who are showing they may have interest in giving more. So I just encourage you again, can you think about for your next event how you could incorporate some of these tactics? So maybe that's a donation upsell when people are buying a ticket or purchasing raffle tickets. Maybe you are creating some bundles so guests can purchase one item. It has everything they need for the ultimate gala experience, including maybe an add-on, which is a donation that goes straight to the organization. Or maybe it is incorporating the option to donate a bid. So you ask your donors, hey, if you don't win this item, do you want to donate another amount instead? And what I love about this is like, yes, these donation upsells are strategically created to allow you to raise more today. But like Victoria also mentioned, they're going to help you open the door to identify the donors that may become long-term supporters for your organization. They're going to give you the building blocks that you need to identify who the right people are. And so make sure as you're thinking about these elements for your fundraising too, you're thinking ahead in terms of how can I use the insight I have today, the extra dollars I'm raising today to influence how and what my fundraising and nurturing strategy continues to look like. And then my last and to be honest, my favorite way right now that we're seeing organizations identify hidden donors is through a live auction. So just like Victoria mentioned, with their live auction, they watched who was placing bids, but then they also took a look at who didn't win. And I'm wondering if you're doing the same. Do you know who those donors are? And if you saw that they were willing to give a significant amount of money to your cause, what and how can you be engaging with those individuals too? So I just encourage you, think about how you can build those relationships and really focus on what that might look like for your organization. And at Trellis, I mean, that's something that we are really excited about. And that's why, like I said, we've designed a lot of our platform in order to help you achieve some of these goals. And while this all sounds great, you are busy people, and I don't want to pretend that you suddenly have a lot of capacity to do all of this as well. And so, one of the other pieces that we are really, really excited about here at Trellis is our new Sky API add-in, which is essentially going to be the tools you need in Razor's Edge if you're using that CRM to identify exactly who your new high potential donors are in your database and who you should be reaching out to first. It looks like this. It would look like the people like Catherine who decided to participate in a donation upsell. Or maybe Todd who added on an additional item to his checkout. Maybe it was Jerry who actually was your other auction item bidder who didn't win or donate, but we know that he had $3,000 he was about ready to give to your cause. Or it's like Lizzie, who actually just lost an auction item, but she chose to donate that instead to the cause. And so with our new add-on that we're really excited about, you can actually see and be prompted right in Razor's Edge so that your development team doesn't need to do any more work. They can just focus on the right work instead. And so the day after the event, they can come into work, they open up their computer, they go into Razor's Edge, and this is exactly what they'll see. They'll see the top upsells. They can see exactly who they need to start reaching out to first, what actions they need to take to make sure that they're engaging the right people. Again, like I said, we know you're very busy people. We know that there's a lot on your plate. And so with this new add-in, we're really excited that we can make it just that much easier for you to focus on the right people and start to build those long-term relationships because at the end of the day, we know it's all just about nurturing those long-term relationships. Now, I do want to bring Victoria back up to answer some of your questions. And so again, if you do have any questions that you haven't thrown into the chat yet, now is the perfect moment to do so. But before we do that, I also wanted to make sure that all of you today walked away with some really tangible takeaways that you can implement right away to your organization. So by the end of today, hopefully you've got something you can do or are doing. So what I've done is I've identified 3 different buckets, and my guess is that all of you on this call right now could probably fit into one of them. So maybe it would help if I showed you what those buckets are. There we go. Maybe the first one is you're running an event. So this is perfect timing. If it's not too late, I would just consider how you can add some donation upsells. Maybe we start there. And if you're using Trellis and you're not using a donation upsell, then make sure you throw that in the chat right now or get a hold of our team in one of the many ways you know to do. And we will make sure that we set that up and make sure that you have that as well. If you aren't using our platform, or even if you are, and you're just looking for some more ideas, this is also a great opportunity to download that guide because again, like I said, there are lots of resources in there that I think will help answer some of your questions. Justin can throw a link into the chat for that as well right now. Or maybe you've got an event coming up. Again, perfect timing, and would probably be a great time to connect with our team as well. And we'd love to help you just brainstorm how you can raise more. How can you use this fundraiser as an opportunity to raise more today, but ultimately start to identify some new long-term donors with the way that we're asking for individuals to give. If that's the case, and Justin's also going to throw a link into the chat so you can connect with our team to do that as well. And then finally, if you are curious how to implement these tactics into your organizations, we get it. I also love that you're looking for additional information or resources to try and figure out what and how that could look like if you were to partner with us here at Trellis. Again, use that link. You can connect with our team, and we would love to answer any questions you have. Just walk you through a little bit more about what your fundraisers could look like on Trellis as well. Okay, that is it on my end. I would love to open up the floor to some questions here. And so let's jump there next. Let me see where these questions are at. Okay. Amazing. One of the questions that we just had come in through the Q&A was just around the GBay bag. So Victoria, hoping maybe you can answer that for us. How did you come up with the idea for the GBay bags, and how would you say that's helped engage more donors for your organization?
Yeah, so I was not at the foundation when the bags were first started, but I believe that that was the first year of Power of Giving, which at that time was the virtual gala. So this really created an opportunity to put something tangible and very intentionally curated in the hands of our donors. You know, each year we receive so much positive feedback about the bags, and certainly a lot of excitement when they launch, especially since the quantity is limited. And you know, there are many donors that purchase these bags who do not attend the event. So, you know, we also make sure to put items in there that appeal to a diverse audience as well. And then the businesses who put in items in the bag, they also spread the word on their social platforms and with their customers. So having these bags certainly increases our level of engagement within the community.
Love that. Somebody also asked, can I ask, is the 600,000 plus total that you raised, was that net or was that gross?
That is gross.
Right.
Our net, I don't have the exact number with me right now, but it's approximately 500,000. So we're very, very proud of our expense ratio, and we do our best to reduce expenses anywhere we can, because it really is about raising money for the hospital.
Absolutely. I would also say with that too, while I 100% agree, you know, this is also your opportunity to put your foot forward and to kind of highlight, you know, who you are as an organization and get in front of that. And so, you know, a lot of the relationship building, a lot of the relationships that you have with donors come from events like this. And so
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you know, you had an incredible gross and an incredible net, but that cost is still there for sure. And that's a part of it.
Yeah.
This person asked, I'm not sure if I missed it, but curious to know, with the donate your silent auction bid part, is that something that can automatically be added through Trellis at any time of the silent auction closing? I can answer that. Yes, so with your donate your silent auction bid, that is exactly how it works. So that's a feature that you can set up on Trellis. You can say when people are, when you're setting it up, you can ask, or you can choose to ask if people want to donate their bids. And then as soon as they place a bid on an item, they'll get a little pop-up that says, hey, if you don't win this item, do you want to donate this amount instead? They can say yes or no. They can choose how much they want to give. Again, when the silent auction ends, if they did not choose to make any donations during, they'll also be asked again, hey, do you want to make a donation now that we know you haven't won, essentially, in nicer language than what I just said. But again, you know, really focusing on these individuals are here to support your organization. So let's use this opportunity when we know they're ready and willing to donate or to give, to make a donation instead. Victoria, maybe I can pass this question back to you. Any advice or thoughts regarding weighing sponsor tickets and attendance versus general public and donors with event planning and sponsor structure? So how do you make sure that you can get the right people in the room and balance all of the different stakeholders essentially that need to be there?
Yeah, so with our sponsorship structure, so we have giving levels. The top is $20,000, and the lowest level is $1,500. So many opportunities within that range. And for sponsor tickets, we typically offer tickets with 10,000 and up. So, I know there certainly is opportunity to, give every sponsor ticket, but for us, we know that that ticket revenue is, can be substantial. And so with the focus of raising as much money as possible, we do our best to limit how many tickets we are giving away. And we do know that, the people that are truly in line with our mission want to help us raise money, they will purchase those tickets. So I would say, definitely, don't go overboard, I would say, with giving away free tickets, especially if you rely on that revenue.
Amazing. I think we have time for one last question here super quickly, and then we will have to wrap it up. But does this approach work for smaller organizations and events? And I know, Victoria, you also like the Power of Giving Gala is not the only fundraiser you're running throughout the course of the year, some of them being much smaller. So yeah, what does that look like for a smaller organization or smaller event?
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of using Trellis and using the data, I would say absolutely the data can just be read, in the same way, but on a smaller scale. And even if that data helps you recognize behavior of even just one donor, that could be, indicative of them increasing their support or supporting in other ways beyond your event, it's definitely worth it. You never know where that one relationship could lead in support of your organization.
Absolutely. And I mean, at Trellis, I mean, we have the privilege of seeing and working with a handful of organizations, a whole range of different sizes and industries and, kinds of causes that they support. And I think, the commonalities that I see that always work really well, go back to providing people opportunities to give, following up and engaging those relationships and highlighting your cause, talking about who you are and what you do. And regardless of size, those are definitely the top three things I see organizations are doing that are allowing them to hit their goals, to raise more money, and and then continue to develop relationships, which will turn into those long-term donor relationships that I know are so important for your organization, regardless of what size and kind of organization you're in. Amazing. Well, we do have to wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Victoria, for sharing and just being so open to giving us so many insights and tips around how you've run Power of Giving Gala, and what that's looked like for your organization, as well as just some strategies that I think probably are really beneficial for a lot of individuals on this call. So thanks so much for joining us and sharing your insight with us today.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate the opportunity, and to everyone else on the call. Hopefully if you missed anything, I know I put out a lot of information there, so I hope you're able to look back in the recording as well, and hopefully there are some helpful tips and strategies in there for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll be throwing a recording out. We'll send out a link too. So if there's anybody else in your network, at your jobs, or at other organizations that you care about that you think should hear this as well, please forward along the link, because hopefully there's something that they can learn as well. Amazing. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everybody for being here, and we will see you at the next Trellis Talks webinar in a couple months.